moisture in the air.
Well, since we have 1 minute, I'll tell you my 1 minute terrible story. So Sunday, we have 30 people coming for dinner, right?
Is that this weekend? Or are you just saying
was
historically?
yesterday.
Oh, that was yesterday.
Man,
It was a bad day.
Great.
before they did all of that rainwater diversion, we used to get water in our basement all the time, and it was a multiple day after cleanup, after you're staying busy.
Yes.
Yeah.
No fun.
But this is sewage.
It's a little different.
Yeah.
You're right. This was coming up through the floor drain, though.
Yeah.
So
had that problem.
kind of the same.
I had the problem.
Kind of the same.
Okay, shall we?
Are we ready to go? Bill? No. I see who's back there. Good. Ready to go.
I'd like to call to order the Middletown City Council meeting for Tuesday, September 21st, 2021. Ms. Gank, could you please start with a roll call for us?
Ms. Vittori.
Here.
Ms. Nenny.
Here.
Mr. Moon.
Here.
Mr. Mulligan.
Here.
Mayor Condrey.
Here. And we're starting a half hour early today, so we can roll to an executive session. So under the authority of ORC 121.22G1, to consider the appointment, employment, dismissal, discipline, promotion, demotion, or compensation of a public employee or official, we have a motion to move to executive session.
So move for adoption.
Second?
Ms. Gank, could you please call the roll for us?
Ms. Nenny.
Yes.
Mr. Moon.
Yes.
Mr. Mulligan.
Yes.
Mayor Condrey.
Yes.
Ms. Vittori.
Yes.
Okay, with that, we will move to executive session and return to council chambers in open session for our regular meeting.
We're set up in the training room.
do. Please do. Oh, okay. I forgot to ask. Did anyone else have comment cards?
Do I have a motion to return to open session?
So moved.
Second?
Ms. Skink, when you get a chance, would you mind calling the roll for us?
Ms. Vettori,
Here.
Mr. Mulligan,
Yes.
Ms. Condrey,
Yes.
Mr. Moon,
Yes.
Ms. Nanny.
Yes.
And can we just confirm Ms. Vittori's vote was
Yes, sorry, I
Thank
thought
you.
it was
No
roll
problem.
call. It's back at the beginning.
That's right. Okay, great. So let's start then with a moment of meditation followed by the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we'll start with our citizen comments this evening. We have one. Mr. Chris Batty, if you would like to come up to the dais, state your name and address for the record for us.
Good evening. Chris Batty, 128 Marymount Court, Middletown, Ohio. Just 2 weeks ago, and for the past 4 months, I've warned of the illegal government mandates and requested this council take action proactively to do your job, uphold your oath of office, and protect the God-given, constitutionally protected rights of Middletonians by voting on and passing a medical freedom ordinance. Just 2 days after our last city council meeting, Joe Biden illegally and unconstitutionally issued a vaccine mandate for over 100 million Americans. Recent VAERS data reveals that there are as many adverse reactions and even deaths caused by this experimental vaccine, such as 61,000 hospitalizations, 110,000 doctor's office visits, 6,000 anaphylaxis, 8,000 Bell's palsy, 2,000 miscarriages, 7,000 heart attacks, 20,000 permanently disabled folks, 15,000 deaths. That's right, deaths. To make it a little more personal, I've had multiple people that I know personally that have had adverse reactions. One had to go to the emergency room just 2 hours after getting the vaccine. And I'm seeing videos and reading affidavits of people that have also experienced detrimental effects. I keep hearing from our leaders that when it comes to a COVID death, one is just too many. But 15,000 deaths and hundreds of thousands or more of adverse effects are not too much. Although Governor DeWine likely will not do his job to protect us the way he should, the way other governors are, at least he acknowledged that Biden, quote, made a mistake with this mandate. What this country needs is cities all over our nation standing up to this tyranny and enacting legislation to the same effect to send the message that these illegal overreaches will not be tolerated. We need brave, patriotic councilmen, women, and mayors to stand up and do what is right and lead the charge on this. I've come here for the last 4 months to inform you and also to arm you with the data and the pre-written ordinances and point you to other brave leaders that are doing the right thing to encourage and compel you to do the same. Look at Lebanon City. Their city council passed it 2 weeks ago. I can email you a copy of it as well, of their ordinances and resolutions they passed. I wonder how they passed theirs. Perhaps this council could talk to Lebanons and leverage what they know. I understand that Law Director Ben Yoder had some uncertainties about the law in his response about 3 months ago, so hopefully those should be easily cleared up. Just this morning, Sheriff Jones issued a statement and did a video stating that they are not the shot police and will not be enforcing vaccines. This isn't just a statement, it's action to send a clear message to the tyrants in this country that are encroaching on and taking our freedoms. I'm thankful for brave folks like this, and they are simply fulfilling their oath and following the Constitution, which states, and I quote, "I do solemnly swear that I will support and defend the Constitution of the U.S. against all enemies, foreign and domestic." This is the same oath that each one of you took and swore to when taking your positions, and the people of Middletown expect you to abide by it. Therefore, I urge you to bring this resolution or ordinance up for a first reading and a vote at or before the next city council meeting. If you aren't in support of it, the people of this city will simply replace you with someone who will. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next we have our council comments. Well, we'll start with Ms. Vittori.
Thank you. I wanted to congratulate Portopia, which is the new immersive art experience that the Visitors Bureau launched, I believe, almost 2 weeks ago. It's a really great, fun, family, and really every age entertainment, immersive art experience. It's an adventure. It's got clues and codes, and most of the kids that have come through so far have really enjoyed it. So I would encourage people. I know for a long time there hasn't been a lot to do for families in Middletown, so this is a really fun, new, exciting thing that we have right here in the Midi. So you can get tickets at portopia.org. And then I think they are also, the Visitors Bureau is working on doing some first responder and teacher nights and times when we can get free tickets to some families to get them through as well. So be on the lookout from either the Visitors Bureau or the city to get that kind of communication. I want to thank DMI for Dog Days, which was another fun event where we saw lots of people out and about with all their pooches. It was nice, and it was a nice day out, plus we had lots of vendors and lots of community people and lots of free dog treats and all kinds of fun stuff. So it's always nice to see the streets full of people and life. Hopefully we'll see more of that. I did want to follow up. I had a couple of citizens reach out to me with requests and concerns and just not really understanding how our public records work. So I don't know if we want to take a minute now or later in new business, but I would like for the city to kind of explain what a public records request is, how does it work, because I think that people are getting some cross information that they're not sure about. Do you want to do that now or later?
It's up to council. I'd suggest if you want it now, or we can handle it in new business, whatever you would like.
I mean, you can address it now, I don't mind. I think it's
Probably
valid.
best handled with Mr. Conover, who's joining us today.
Yeah, I'm happy to kind of talk through. We won't spend a lot of time here. I used to give 3-hour trainings on this for the Attorney General, so we'll condense it down into just a few minutes. The city receives hundreds of public records requests a year, kind of anything from, hey, I'd like to see this contract, or information about this topic, or whatever the case may be. And we kind of process them all the same. So the city will get them in various departments. They'll come through the law department. We will look at them, determine whether there's a responsive record, whether there's not, and we'll spend our time kind of diving in, right, to determine, is this a valid request? Because a request has to specifically identify what it's seeking. So it can't just say, I want all emails between, Councilman Mulligan and Councilman Vittori. So we need to dive in a little bit more specifically with what it is asking for, because otherwise we'll spend all of our time looking for public records requests. The other thing it has to do is it has to request records that actually exist. There's a FOIA, the Freedom of Information Act, which is a federal law that allows people to ask federal agencies or the federal government for information, right? What was the salary of this person? Where the state law is the Public Records Act in Ohio, so it has to identify a record that already exists, and that we can readily determine what you're asking for and find it. I will say the law department here, and I don't say that because I'm part of it, but the in-house law department at the city really does spend and knows where everything is, and we really rely upon them to be able to work with the different departments to find what they're looking for. I will also say that regardless of who makes a request, we receive them all the same way, whether it comes from a council member, whether it comes from a city staff, a city resident, someone outside of the state, a company. We receive anonymous requests as well. You're not required to provide your identity. We treat them all the same. We respond to them as best we can. But at the end of the day, the law requires certain things. We have to, identify the request you're seeking. It can't be overly broad, or identify the record you're seeking. Sorry, it can't be overly broad or so voluminous that we would have to search through every record that exists. And I will say, just from a practical standpoint, we really do try to work with the people that are making the request. If we deny it, the law requires us to ask for clarification and allow them to make a modification of their request. We often will just call a requester sometimes to try to help understand what they're looking for, because it could trigger 10,000 documents, and I don't want to look through those. The requester doesn't want to look through 10,000 documents if that's what it would be. So if we can really try to nail down what it is that they're looking for, we're going to try to find it, do that, and give them what they're asking for. So again, I'd like to just commend the staff of the city because they really do help us. The legal team do that. I would say, we're not going to give out, there's certain exceptions, right? We don't give out attorney-client privilege. Sometimes the city may make the decision to do that. You guys as the client can certainly waive that, but we're not going to give out medical information. We're not going to give out social security numbers, things like that, to protect the identity of either whether that's an employee or a resident or something like that. We get a lot of requests through the police department. They handle probably the single largest volume, whether that's just a traffic report or an incident report, things like that. So we really do work with all the different departments to try to help them respond to these requests. The law requires a reasonable period of time. Sometimes that's not as fast as people would like them, but we really do try to push these out, and we keep a pretty good log of where they're at in the process of response, so we're not letting anything, in theory, slip through the cracks. So that's kind of the 30,000 square foot, or not square foot, 30,000 foot view of what those are. But if there's any follow-up questions from council, I'm happy to answer those.
So if someone requests a record, but that record doesn't exist, will you typically try to reach back out to them to say, like, hey, what are you trying to get? Because maybe you should kind of ask for this?
Sure. So when we would deny that, right, because we don't have to create a new record, but we will say, look, we're denying it because it doesn't exist. And but here's how we organize our records, right? So we'll provide retention schedules or just have a conversation with them to talk through, what exists, how we organize it, and how we can get them what they want. That's we absolutely try to do that as often as we can. Sometimes, folks stick to their guns a little bit and say, no, I want this. Other times they won't even follow back up. And sometimes they won't answer a call or, whatever. We really try to reach out, but, I can't guarantee every single person is willing to have that conversation, but we typically try.
Thank you.
When does the city reach out to the city staff members that are subject of the records request to provide the records?
So you mean like if we get a request for emails or something like that? So some of it depends, right? So in theory, it exists, if it's between two city employees, right? It would exist in one person's inbox, or we can run a search through the IT system. So it just depends on kind of the breadth of the request. Typically, and again, this is not what I would do, but city staff, like Julie would probably do that, or Susan, we would just kind of let them know, hey, we received a request that would include your emails or text messages or anything like that. We've had these all over the last, few years, and just kind of let them know, hey, this request was made. These are probably going to be going out at some point. But Susan may be able to better speak.
I will tell you, I think our staff is really overworked and understaffed, so if we don't need to bother someone, I will tell you, for example, if it's something we can run through the email archiver at the city and produce accurate email records, we may not tell staff to bother them and get out of their day that, this is available because it's readily available through a means that we can get and don't have to bother somebody with. We would approach someone as soon as we're able to do so if it would require some response from them. So for example, you request someone's text messages. We would need to reach out to that staff member and say, there's been this request, can you help us fulfill it? Because I can't fulfill that from an administrative standpoint.
How do we ensure that the staff member hasn't deleted public records?
IT system will not, it catches them on the back end. So even if they're not in their inbox, they're in the cloud.
When it comes to text messages, though, from...
I will be honest with you, I am not the techie person. If you would like better update on that, I'd be happy to get our IT department to discuss the stop gaps and things that are put in place. I'm not the person to be able to answer that for you right now.
I don't feel it's appropriate ever to go to the city staff member asking for the public record, because if there is something that's being attempted to be hidden, they're going to hide it and not provide it. So I don't feel that that is probably the best way to approach a public record request, except that they also do need to be asked, because should they have used a personal phone or email on that topic, they need to be able to provide that. Mm-hmm. But when it comes to city emails, we shouldn't have our own staff at least fill in.
And that's why those email requests are handled through our information systems department that runs it through the archiver that will not allow you to go back and delete things.
And I don't think every request is trying to catch somebody in something, right? Like, sometimes you're just asking for information, and so if a city staffer has a role and information to share, I would think then it's appropriate to ask the person who's responsible for the information to share it.
Yeah, but like Susan said, the cloud captures it all. So even if it's deleted from an individual inbox, then we're able to kind of catch it on the back end, and it would. That's what we look at, like Troy sends, on a thumb drive, whatever records we may need to look through.
But certainly, if you'd like more information on the tech side of it, I'd be happy to get it for you. I just don't want to pretend that I'm the person that knows all of that.
Yeah, I mean, I would definitely like to know how we ensure when it comes to text messages that we're getting it all.
I have an IT department that I'm sure would love to get you information. They're very interested in it.
And every employee, it's in the employee handbook, so it's we have a public records policy that, requires every employee to maintain public records, so they would be, when they come on board, basically, they would be, signing that they have reviewed all city policies, which would include that, so.
And if people want to make a public records request, what is the easiest way for the public to do that?
So I think there's an email, is that right? Or a form online? There is a way to do it online.
Okay.
There is a spot off our website, but you can also provide that to any city staff. They should know how to process it internally. So any city staff you have in contact with should know if you make a request, where to direct you or to be able to fulfill that themselves.
And then on our website, there's somewhere that says make a public, great. Thank you for sharing that. I appreciate it.
Absolutely.
And that concludes my comments.
Thank you. And as a reminder to our citizens, all of the records at the city are your records. They actually belong to you. So that's why you can make those requests and get all the information that belongs to you. So thank you. All right, Mr. Mulligan, can you top that discussion?
No. Thank you, Your Honor. Just a couple of comments. One, earlier this month, had the opportunity to participate in a ribbon cutting for the new bike path connection between Middletown and Franklin. I just want to congratulate all the people who were involved in that. We had, obviously, the city of Franklin invested its tax dollars, city of Middletown as well. But ODOT was involved, the Great Miami Riverway, Butler Metro Parks, and so many entities came together. And we knew when we first looked at that project probably 10 or 12 years ago that it was going to be the longest and hardest just because of the topography and the way there's a railroad track that interferes with the bike path. But we got it done. It was a pleasure to participate. And now at this point, just invite all of the residents of Middletown to enjoy it, because that really connects over 300 miles of bike path for walking, running, and enjoying our scenic riverfront, because not every city has that amenity. So I would welcome residents to really take advantage of that. In the years to come, probably next year, there will be a connection made there at the termination of North Brio Boulevard at 73 to make access to the bike path easier. So we look forward to that as people riding from Middletown's neighborhoods can get direct access. And then secondly, I offer thanks to the Middletown Economic Development Team. They put together a great session for the Small Business Alliance. It was the inaugural meeting. There were about 30 small business owners that came together. I joined it, and I think it was a great session, just trying to help small business owners navigate the world of Google and marketing. And it's a free service, so I would encourage those watching at home, take advantage of this. The city really wants to be at your side and your partner. Go to choosemiddletownoh.org to sign up. The next meeting is October 13th. I believe it's at 8 a.m. But please join us. It's a great resource, and the city certainly is here to help small business owners. Thank you.
Mr. Moon.
Yes, thank you. Just wanted to mention, last Friday, had the opportunity to play a small part at the Dog Days on First Friday. Miss Ninny and I were the judges of the dogs that were dressed up, and it was a lot of fun, and it was a great event at White Dog, and also had the chance to talk to the owner of White Dog and just got a brief update on his plans there and the grant we had made to him for the improvements in the music venue there, and he is on track, and everything is going to be coming to fruition. So I was glad to hear that and wanted to share that this evening. That's all I have.
Thank you. Miss Nenny, is it still Nenny?
It is still Nenny,
Okay.
for now, legally. I also wanted to just echo Councilman Moon's comments about Dog Day. It was really nice to see so many people downtown, and to see an event that really sort of also memorializes a friend of ours, Kara Goheen, and all of the work that she put into creating that event and making it so special. And to all of the people who continue to organize that event, thank you for carrying that on and carrying her torch. I know that that meant a lot to a lot of people. So I just wanted to touch on that. And then also, speaking of all of our people downtown who work so hard for the city to make it a really vibrant place, we also have our first Friday coming up for September, and it is a Fall in Love with Art theme that's hosted by the PAC. So they're encouraging everyone to show up downtown in their plaid and support the arts in Middletown. So I invite everyone to do that. And my last note, because I hear about it so often from so many people who love our new roads and how easy they are to drive on and speed on, to just keep in mind that the speed limits have not changed, and please keep them in mind. There are a lot of neighborhoods and a lot of kids who play in those neighborhoods, so just be safe. Thank you.
I only had one thing to follow up on. The electric at Smith Park. Do you have an update on that one since the last meeting?
Mr. Tadich, do you have an update? I'm going to ask if Mr.
Okay.
Tadich can.
Yeah, great. Thank you.
We're working on getting the locks back on there. We have a lot of new staff. We had a lot of retirements in our parks department, and have a lot of transition going on right now, but we are looking at getting those locked up. A lot of the actual locks are broken off, so we're gonna have to fix them.
There's no like switch.
Well, so,
It seems like a lot of locks.
right, I'll have to check on the different circuits. I mean, in some cases, I think if you shut it off, it's like the entire park, and there may be some circuits that need to be on constantly, so you can't separate it all, but I'll need to confirm that. But we are working on it.
Okay.
to make
I just
long story
noticed
short.
it's still,
Right.
everyone's plugging in like crazy, and if that's our goal, then that's our goal, but I don't think it's probably what we intend. Okay.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, that brings us to city manager report. Ms. Cohen is acting in the place of Jim.
Filling in for the week. Mr. Palahniuk is enjoying a very well-deserved vacation, so we hope he is enjoying some warm weather. I only had one item this evening I wanted to speak with you about. I believe prior to his leaving, Mr. Palahniuk sent everyone an email asking about the second meeting in October. He, unfortunately, just as it happens to be, is going to be in Washington, D.C. for the Warren County Fly-In, along with some of our coworkers and things that we are doing business with. That evening, we believe we are going to be set to discuss the second budget presentation meeting, as well as maybe some potential discussions on the riverfront development that we are excited to bring in front of you. Because of those two major topics, one, we were a little concerned that second meeting in October could be fairly lengthy, but also Mr. Palahniuk and some of the people that are going to be in the Warren County Fly-In would like to be here to discuss with you, particularly for Mr. Palahniuk, the budget and the riverfront development. For the riverfront development, particularly to have some of our colleagues with us. So we would ask if council would consider having two meetings that week. One, we would keep the meeting on the 19th as our regular business meeting for our items that we would consider regular, normal, customary. And if council would consider calling for a special meeting on the 21st to discuss the budget and the riverfront development. Hopefully that will prevent us from being here one night for, 6-7 hours, but also allow the right people to be available for any questions and presentations that are necessary.
Just as a side note, too, that's when we had originally scheduled the Sunny Hill Leadership Academy to come and to start at 4:30.
I was on the 19th.
The 17th?
The 19th.
Oh, on
On the 19th.
Thursday?
We could still
Would still
proceed
work.
with that. I'd be happy to participate if you needed someone from the staff.
Okay, just want to make sure
yeah.
that that's also,
'Cause that might not be a long meeting then.
No, I think what the thought was to not overload any one meeting, and it would be the regular and customary legislation, things that we would see normally, and then we could have the separate meeting that week to discuss the bigger issues that Mr. Palahniuk would like to be here for. So if council's agreeable on that, we would like to proceed that way, but I wanted to make sure that that was okay with the majority of council.
It's fine. Yep.
So 5:30 on the 21st.
I'd like to plan on 5:30 here on the 21st to discuss the budget and the riverfront development issues.
So for the special meeting documents, I'll need an email from either the mayor or 2 members of council to go ahead and set that special meeting.
I can do that.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And that is all I have this evening. Thank you.
Let me just write this down so I. Okay. That brings us to the consent agenda. Ms. Skink, will you please present that for us?
For your consideration this evening, we have to receive and file the following board and commission minutes from the Board of Zoning Appeals, July the 7th, 2021, Board of Health from August the 10th, 2021, and the Planning Commission from August the 11th, 2021. To receive and file oaths of office for Kimberly Poe and Jennifer Rednauer. To confirm the following personnel appointments. Deborah Wells to the position of Assistant Development Services Director in the Development Services Department, and Christina Blanton to the position of Dispatcher in the Department of Public Safety, Division of Police. Hannah Moore to the position of Human Resources Specialist in the Department of Administrative Services, Division of Human Resources. Sean Dickens to the position of Housing Code Specialist in the Department of Development Services. To confirm the promotional appointments of Jonathan Winkler to the position of Equipment Operator in the Department of Public Works and Utilities, Division of Street Maintenance. Nicholas Gillespie to the position of Equipment Operator in the Department of Public Works and Utility, Division of Parks Maintenance, and Matthew Hale to the position of Equipment Operator in the Department of Public Works and Utilities, Division of Stormwater Maintenance. To authorize the city manager to enter into a contract with Grid One Solutions to assist the Water Maintenance Department with meter transmission unit installations, and to appoint the following members to the Community Center Advisory Committee: Dr. Keith Bricking, Jennifer Effinger, Stephen Hightower II, Deanna Shores, and Tyler Roberts, and representing City Council, Amy Vittori and Tal Moon.
I move to approve the issues and actions set forth in the consent agenda.
Second. Ms. Skink, will you please call the roll?
Mr. Moon,
Yes.
Mr. Mulligan,
Yes.
Mayor Condrey,
Yes.
Ms. Nenny,
Yes.
Ms. Vittori.
Yes.
On the motion agenda item this evening, we have to authorize the city manager to enter into a professional services contract with Brown and Caldwell for as-needed engineering services for the sewer rehab and replacement program.
So move for adoption.
Second?
Ms. Skink, will you please call the roll?
Mr. Mulligan,
Yes.
Mayor Condrey,
Yes.
Ms. Vittori,
Yes.
Ms. Nenny,
Yes.
Mr. Moon.
Yes.
Okay, and who will be presenting legislation this evening?
Aptly assisting us this evening is Brody Conover, Mr. Yoder's office.
Thank you. Before we get started, I do want to, sorry, go ahead and present to waive for certain legislation items tonight, the second reading and emergency measures for legislation items 1, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and 11.
I think for the matter of the record, we have to read the resolution number.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'll read them individually as well. So that will be legislation item number 1, resolution number R2021-36. Item number 5, resolution number R2021-37. Item number 6, ordinance number 02021-76. Item number 7, ordinance number 02021-77. Item number 8, resolution number R2021-38. Item number 9, ordinance number 02021-78. Item number 10, ordinance number 02021-79. And item number 11, ordinance number 02021-80.
Just out of clarification, the ordinance numbers has a O instead of a 0, just for the record.
Oh,
No
2021.
problem, I'm just stating it so we don't get messed up.
I move to waive the charter provision requiring readings on 2 separate days, and the previously read resolutions and ordinances be declared emergencies and read one time only.
Second?
I personally don't feel that 2 of these items meet the threshold, R 2021-37 and O 2021-76, about the 2 mobile restroom trailers, just as a comment before we vote on that. Ms. Skink, will you please call the roll?
Mr. Mulligan,
Yes.
Mayor Condrey,
No?
Ms. Vittori,
Yes.
Ms. Nenny,
Yes.
Mr. Moon,
Yes.
All right, so we will move to item number 1 on the legislation agenda, resolution number R 2021-36, a resolution accepting the amounts and rates as determined by the Budget Commission and authorizing the necessary tax levies and certifying them to the county auditor and declaring an emergency.
So move for adoption.
Second?
Ms. Cohen, would you like to speak to this one?
I believe Mr. Kalanick discussed last time. I'm happy to take any additional questions, but I will not delay us any longer.
Any comments or questions from council? Ms. Skank, please call the roll.
Mayor Condrey,
Yes.
Ms. Vettori,
Yes.
Ms. Nenny,
Yes.
Mr. Moon,
Yes.
Mr. Mulligan.
Yes.
Okay, item number 2, ordinance number O 2021-72, an ordinance authorizing the Middletown transit system to operate fare-free in calendar year 2022, and this is the second reading of this item.
So move for adoption.
Second.
Any comments or questions on this one?
I just wanted to mention, we had a gentleman who came and spoke to us at the end of the last council member who is a frequent bus rider, and I think kind of sung the praises of this program and also assuaged, I think, our fears about it being a constant homeless circulator, saying that he really hadn't seen much, if any, of it, and he rides it every day to different parts of town. So just to share that story, since I think we kind of had some of those questions.
And at different times of day, we really kind of quizzed him about that, and I felt like he explained a lot of the benefits. We also received a PowerPoint email from someone from BCRTA who couldn't be here, who had a lot of, I think, valid arguments for the benefits of the program. And I think while we had those fears, I do also think that the benefits of the relationship that we have with that organization and the potential future projects that we might have with them, I think outweigh, for me, any of the concerns that I previously had.
I think the two main points that the PowerPoint brought up were that the exchange of money is difficult or is a challenge and has to be accounted for, and also that grant dollars, we would receive fewer grant dollars by the amount of revenue that we took in for the program. I don't find either one of those arguments to be worth not charging fare for a few reasons. One, with that same argument of it's hard to collect money, then should we stop collecting for water in our city too? Because that costs us money to collect. And on the same token, businesses have to collect money every day, and that's part of the process. So do they stop having to deal with collecting money and we give grants to that? I just don't find that that is a good enough reason to not collect fare. And the grant comment, the grant dollars are our tax dollars. So it's just a different level. It's just not coming directly from the city. We're paying that money anyway, so it's not a free lunch. It's just coming from a different pot of money. And as stewards of grant money, I feel we should also try to spend as little of grant money as we can so that the money can be spent where it's needed in better situations. So I personally don't believe that we should be waiving the fees for the transit system and plan to vote against this. Any other comments? Okay, Ms. Skank, will you please call the roll?
Ms. Vettori,
Yes.
Ms. Nenny,
Yes.
Mr. Moon,
Yes.
Mr. Mulligan,
Yes.
Mayor Condrey.
No.
Okay, item number 3, ordinance number O 2021-73, an ordinance amending various sections of the Middletown Development Code of the Middletown Codified Ordinances, and this is, again, a second reading.
So move for adoption.
Second?
Anyone have any comments or questions on this one? Okay, Ms. Skank, you please call the roll.
Ms. Nenny,
Yes.
Mr. Moon,
Yes.
Mr. Mulligan,
Yes.
Mayor Condrey,
Yes.
Ms. Vettori,
Yes.
Okay, item number 4, this is ordinance number O 2021-74, an ordinance authorizing the city manager to enter a grant agreement with Compassion City Center Incorporated. Again, this is a second reading of this item.
So move for adoption.
Second?
Any comments or questions?
I had a few people reach out to me about this, and I know I'd asked the question about how Compassionate City Center is passing this through to Midway Baseball. I think we're all huge fans of Midway Baseball. They just wanted to assure, once again, tracking those expenses, that that money actually goes completely to Midway Baseball. And then going forward, if hopefully this program's going to continue and we're going to support it, at what point does it become its own organization rather than be funding a religious organization, which just always can feel a little off?
If I may, two things. First of all, with regards to the grant tracking, comes out of HUD funds. HUD requires us to fill out particular paperwork for each of our grant funds that account for exactly how it was spent. So they have some obligations in the grant agreement that says, hey, you're taking this money, but you're agreeing to us to provide the appropriate information. So in the end, when they spend this money, they are obligated by agreement to account to us for all of the dollars that are spent and that they're going to low to moderate income residents for approved costs for HUD. So we would be able to provide that to whoever would be concerned and be able to check that as a city staff. I think, and I don't want to speak for Midway Baseball, but I do think eventually if this takes off in the way they believe, and they would hope that it does, that they would venture into their own organization. But this seemed like the best way, I believe, for them to get started, get moving, and get this first year under their belt, using an existing organization to help them.
And is the goal, they obviously want to be a 501c3. So is that part of it, trying to help them? Because I know that that's its process in and of itself. I don't know if we can be helpful in that.
I have not had discussions with them, but we'd be
Okay.
happy to have those discussions. I think this was just working with their partnerships to be able to move forward as efficiently as possible for this year.
Sure. But obviously, if we can help them,
Sure, absolutely.
thank you.
And so just to clarify for Ms. Vittori's question, the 100% of the funds are going towards this project?
Yeah, so this is an agreement with them, but the idea is this money is earmarked for Midway Baseball. It can't be used for their administrative costs. It can't be used for any other host of things that they support. It is Midway Baseball. But they're acting as that fiscal agent, and at the end of their grant spend, they're obligated by the agreement to provide us the appropriate documentation about how it was spent.
Any other comments or questions? Okay, Ms. Skank, could you please call the roll?
Mr. Moon,
Yes.
Mr. Mulligan,
Yes.
Mayor Condrey,
Yes.
Ms. Nenny,
Yes.
Ms. Vittori.
Yes.
Okay, item number 5, resolution number R 2021-37, a resolution to make adjustments to appropriations for current expenses and other expenditures of the city of Middletown, counties of Butler and Warren, state of Ohio, for the period ending December 31st, 2021, and declaring an emergency. And these funds, I believe, appropriations will be from the general and capital improvement funds.
So move for adoption.
Second.
Ms. Cohen, would you like to present this one?
Yes, this matter and the next matter go together. Effectively, this appropriates money, and then the next matter will approve a contract. As we are moving hopefully out of COVID soon, and having some of these access to ARPA dollars to promote tourism, we've had a couple of instances where people have asked us about additional restroom facilities or upgraded restroom facilities, one being pickleball at Jefferson Park. And so trying to promote that as a tourist destination and want to make those facilities as nice as possible. So Mr. Tadich and the Public Works Department worked on some possibilities for those restrooms, and just are proposing to purchase 2 of these restroom trailers. We have a picture we'll show you in a second of what one looks like, to really help support those tourism goals. So this first piece of legislation works to get the dollars in the right place. The second piece of legislation we'll hear next involves authorizing the contract. The reason this is listed now is, it's my understanding there is a 6-month lead time to get this product actually here. So in order to meet some of the springtime deadlines, we wanted to get this order in, so to be able to account for that really long lead time. I don't know whether you would have anything else to add, Mr. Tadich?
I don't think you mentioned anything about the second restroom trailer.
Oh, I'm sorry, my apologies. At the moment, the plan is to put that at the airport to be used for other tourist events, whether that be something going on at Smith Park. They are movable, so the idea is from their bases, they would be able to go to different events as they come to town.
And will these trailers be branded much like the city stages, where that'll be all wrapped and branded? And is that included in the cost? I don't know.
I don't believe that is included in this cost, but I know Ms. Quinlivan has been adamantly working on that.
The branding's not included with this cost. This is purely to purchase the trailers, but the thought process is we would have those wrapped to some effect once we get them.
So that would just come later after
Right,
they arrive?
correct.
Okay.
And we're responsible for maintaining them, I'm assuming.
Correct.
And if we thought about, like, would we, like, let the Spring Blast use these in the lacrosse tournament? And then would we make people, you know how I feel about all that back and forth, like, who's kind of maintaining them, and is that part of a vision of the future, or no?
No, I believe it would be looked at for any large-scale special event within the city. Now, we certainly would have to come up with some regulations.
Maybe we could charge them for it.
Right.
We could make some money.
Potentially, right.
Don't we have restrooms at Smith Park?
Some of these,
That
Yeah, there's not
capacity,
a lot. I mean, when it's the lacrosse tournaments and soccer tournaments, those bathrooms are so overused, and
Just about all large-scale special events use portalets in addition to what's there a lot of times. So it just depends on the event, quite
Do
frankly.
you know what this may be an odd question you've never gotten an answer to, but are the restrooms that were built on most of our parks, do we know the, like the event capacity of those restrooms? Like how many
No.
people at an event was that restroom built for? Like, are they?
No, I don't know that.
Okay.
I think these trailers, I think I saw somewhere they say 750 to 1,000 people at an event for one of these. But I don't know specifically for the rest of the
And
park
I know
system.
that you guys said that you had some photos of what those trailers are gonna look like. How many stalls are in each?
So, and it's kind of hard to see, but in the middle, on the left side would be the female side with 4 stalls and 2 sinks. Then on the right, the right side would be the male with 4 stalls, or 3 stalls, 2 urinals. And then on the far right side, that would be a separate ADA compliant unit that you can see in the picture. It lowers to the ground to allow that ADA compliance. That'll also be, in effect, like a family bathroom, and there'll be like a baby changing station in there.
I appreciate the effort to be inclusive of the ADA accessibility. I think that that's something that gets overlooked often, so I appreciate that. Yeah, I would say if that capacity is good for 1,000 people, then that can't be any bigger than the restrooms that are at Smith Park right now. So if this has a capacity of 700 to 1,000, I would imagine that that's about the same for the existing. So for an event that draws how many people?
3,000 to 4,000.
Yeah, I mean, this is even under capacity, so.
But I do think we could consider renting them.
Absolutely. I think we need to come up with some policy.
Tournaments.
Now, is that a policy that we have for our stages and that sort of thing?
Yes, we do have a policy for the
something
stage,
similar.
like the setup fees and what have you, so.
Susan or Scott, like, how are these going to be managed day to day? You know, because we do have some restrooms at some of these facilities, and I'm glad we're looking at restrooms because I frequently hear from the people that use them, all the restrooms are all locked. Can't get them, I can't get access. So, like, day-to-day management, you know, will pickleball be in charge of closing up when they leave, or will that be on our park staff, or have we worked through that yet?
We'll have to work through that. I mean, we do open and close restrooms at Smith Park and Douglas Park on a day-to-day basis during the, I want to say roughly March to October-ish. I can't remember the exact dates. So we do have staff 7 days a week that go out and open and close those restrooms. So that's certainly something we'll have to consider.
That's on staff will be doing that.
At this point.
Okay.
And that staff that locks and unlocks these restrooms is also maintaining them, making sure that they've got all of the facilities they need?
Right, they add the supplies when they open them in the morning, and then, but they're not coming back during the day to,
Make sure.
Right.
Yeah.
which we put, related to the bathroom supplies, whenever there's a special event, even in Smith Park, it's on the event holder to maintain that throughout the day.
And that's part of their event.
We just need to make that very clear.
Yes, I
So
should.
that they're not coming and chasing me down at the events to call Scott.
So what does it currently cost us for an event at Smith Park to put extra restrooms? And are we footing that bill, or is the event?
Typically, the event holder pays that bill. Unless,
City-funded
right,
event or
yes,
city-sponsored
yes.
event or something.
correct.
I just had, this is the first time I've heard that we need restrooms at Smith Park, like an actual restroom trailer. Like, I mean, I know we bring the restrooms in for events. I just don't, owning a trailer seems a bit excessive for it at Smith, I mean,
I feel like I hear complaints from citizens all the time about the restrooms at all the parks, especially when there's a special event going on. And for me, a trailer like this is a way for us to be able to supplement those existing facilities without building new facilities or expanding those facilities, which would cost a lot more, and it would make these restrooms accessible for whatever events might be going on throughout the city.
but it's earmarked for the airport, which has me completely, like, I don't understand. To me, if it's a parks thing, it's a parks thing. The airport has its own funds. Why are we mixing that?
I think that the intent is that's just to be the base at the moment. It's not that that's only going to be used at airport events. It was, we needed a place to locate it for the moment, and that's the place that it was chosen.
But it will be used there?
I believe it could be used there, but it's also going to be traveling to different events. So obviously, if there's no event going in town, we need a place to maintain it, and that was the place that was chosen.
Mr. Tatch, maybe you can speak to the point, the ARPA funds are limited in their ability to be directed at certain causes. For instance, we couldn't use $95,000 of these funds to construct new or remodel restrooms. It has to be
I
more of a
don't know
tourism.
that for sure. I mean, if you could, I think if it's targeted toward tourism,
I think the purpose and the idea of going this way was that we could address it with 2 trailers for our system of parks and events, and so that we weren't dedicated to only one location, and being able to spread that around was a real plus, I think, from everyone's perspective.
Not a permanent solution, but something that.
Exactly, and it helped promote a wider problem with a limited resource.
Is there a reason why the second trailer wouldn't just live at Smith Park?
We can certainly consider it, I don't know.
I mean, I think there is a reason. I think the intent is to use it at the airport where we have restrooms available, and I don't understand why would be using a mobile restroom at the airport when we have them. So I'm just trying to clear that up because it seems muddy to me. Like, hey, I understand if we think we need restrooms at Smith Park, okay, I can support that, but I don't understand the airport angle.
I believe it was just a location for storage. I don't think the intent was that there was going to be, an airport restroom. I think it was, this needs to live somewhere, and that we,
Can you confirm they're not going to be used at the airport?
I can certainly ask the question.
I mean, I think they're going to be, well, they'd be used all over potentially, but.
But if there was an event at the airport, we would.
Yeah.
Sure, I mean, that I understand.
Hangers.
But it's not intended to be like the FBO restroom facility, is it?
Not to my understanding.
It says an immediate need for restroom facilities has been identified at various city parks and the Middletown Regional Airport.
I don't understand your point.
It says there's a restroom need at the
If there's an
airport.
event at the airport, or if there's an event at any of the local parks or places where we might need them in the city, then that's where we would use them.
I think that there needs to be clarification on that. Because what I understand is that, I read that as though they're going to be permanently open and used at the airport.
Does it say that explicitly?
I believe that the Airport Commission has talked about that being the case.
No. Not to my recollection.
Were you at a meeting where they said that?
I heard discussion of restrooms, and now restrooms are going to be located at the airport. That's why I'm asking. I just
There
wanted
was
to
a,
be
there was a discussion that doors were locked and bathrooms were not accessible. I don't think anybody ever discussed a trailer of
Okay.
restrooms showing up.
Sounds good.
There was a discussion, it was a separate issue.
My understanding is restrooms are open, so.
Okay, sounds good. Then it's clear, and I'm grateful for the clarification. Great, thank you. Any other comments or questions about the restroom trailers? Okay, Ms. Skank, will you please call the roll?
Mr. Mulligan,
Yes.
Mayor Condrey,
Yes.
Ms. Vettori,
Yes.
Ms. Nenny,
Yes.
Mr. Moon.
Yes.
Okay, item number 6, this is ordinance number O-2021-76, an ordinance establishing a procedure for and authorizing a contract with NRT Sales LLC for the purchase of 2 mobile restroom trailers and declaring an emergency.
So move for adoption.
Second?
Any other comments or questions on this one? Same topic. Okay, Ms. Gank, could you please call the roll?
Mayor Condrey?
Yes.
Ms. Vettori?
Yes.
Ms. Nenny?
Yes.
Mr. Moon?
Yes.
Mr. Mulligan?
Yes.
Okay, this is item number 7, ordinance number O-2021-77, an ordinance establishing a procedure for and authorizing a third amendment to a contract with Howe Contractors Incorporated for replacement of the North Middletown Interceptor Sewer and declaring an emergency.
So move for adoption.
Second?
Ms. Cohen, would you like to speak to this one?
This is a change to a contract with Howell Contractors for some repairs to the North Interceptor Sewer. This dates back to, I'm looking at the wrong one. This was emergency repair for unanticipated pipe condition. So we had problems with one of the North Interceptor Sewers and working on the contract to make those repairs.
Any comments or questions from council? Okay, Ms. Gank, could you please call the roll?
Ms. Vettori?
Yes.
Ms. Nenny?
Yes.
Mr. Moon?
Yes.
Mr. Mulligan?
Yes.
Mayor Condrey?
Yes.
Item number 8, this is resolution number R-2021-38, a resolution declaring the necessity of acquiring, constructing, installing, equipping, or improving public improvements within the city of Middletown, Ohio, and declaring an emergency.
So move for adoption.
Second?
Ms. Cohen, would you like to speak to this?
If I may, I'm actually going to invite Director Lyons to come down to discuss the next set of options that are all related to road improvements at the Made Industrial Park. I would also note joining us via Zoom is Caleb Bell with Berker and Eckler, who is the attorney working on our economic development matters. Caleb couldn't be here today. It's from the look of his picture, he's somewhere much better, and will be appearing today on Zoom for us.
Good evening, everybody. First of all, we want to apologize for some of the late recipients of some of the documents. I just want to assure you, they were all submitted to the city last Friday. It was just an internal miscommunication, so we apologize for that. I think you guys are familiar with the Made Industrial Road Park extension project. City Manager Palaniuk kind of went into great detail last week. So this is kind of the second part. This is where we are going to authorize, it's going to be driven by the private developer. So Cincinnati Commercial Contractors are in the audience today. John Westheimer and Jason Maney are here to answer any questions, but they've essentially come to the city to ask to levy an assessment on themselves and on the property within the park. So that kind of makes it a little different than a city-owned assessment. It's about a $2 million road project, maybe a little bit north of that, and it's required to complete the Phoenix Metals expansion project that we brought to council several months ago. So essentially, there are going to be 2 property owners. It's going to be Cincinnati Commercial and then Phoenix Metals that will cover the debt service. The first 3 years are going to be interest only and are going to be covered by Cincinnati Commercial Contractors. And then the second lien is going to be covered by MADE, Middletown Area Development Enterprises. They're going to back the project up, and then the city will be in the third position. So we are pretty confident that it's going to limit our risk fully and that there won't be any issues. We've reviewed everything, and the debt service, everything should be kind of carried through as it's intended to be. But if you have any specific questions, I'm going to defer them to Caleb. So just wanted to give a brief introduction. And I also wanted to let you know, that obviously, that John and Jason are here to answer any questions that you might have as well, too. Anyone have any questions?
Appendix A, petition. I don't have anything there. Does anyone else have anything there?
Petition I laid on your desk, and I'd also included it in the packet that went out online.
So the new packet?
Those were in the documents that we sent to you this afternoon that were inadvertently left out.
So yeah,
first
just
time.
for the record, we did receive most of these at 13:40 today, which 2 meetings in a row is a little frustrating on this topic. I think it's a good project, it's just. I found myself reading it again right as I got to the meeting. So I still don't know which one is the petition.
The petition is,
Yours right there, Caleb, if you want to hand her one of those. Petition.
It says, yep.
it says-
The first page of this one. Yeah. Got it.
So essentially, we have the specs, so that's kind of what the layout, because what's different about this project is that we identify the cost of the project in the special assessment. Sometimes when you do sidewalk assessments, they wait till figure out how much it's gonna be, then they divvy it up. Right now, what we've had to do, what Westheimer's group has had to done is they've had to identify exactly how much it's gonna be, what the costs are, what the fees are for everybody, and then they finance that whole piece for everybody. So they've already identified the cost to build the road and everything, so that's what the specs come from.
So to summarize the next three, 8 is again, got this a little late, but we're basically saying in number 8, yes, this road is necessary. In number 9, we're saying we want to move forward and build the road and the improvements.
We're not building it, they are.
Well,
Yes,
okay.
just to clarify that.
And then in number 10, we're agreeing to let them assess themselves.
Yes. We're just essentially the conduit, so we'll accept it and we'll make sure that the county auditor puts on the special assessments on the tax bills.
And how does that work with the county? Like, I mean, is our approval of that mean the county has to accept that?
It's pretty much, I don't know, Caleb, it's pretty much automatic, I think by a vote of.
Yeah,
council.
that is, yeah, the answer to that is yes. It's a mandatory duty of the county auditor to put on an assessment that's approved by city council. So as was noted by the councilman, these items are responding to the property owner's request, and once you march through 8, 9, and 10, that last one is the levying ordinance that is then certified to the county. And then the assessments are of record with the county auditor. They'll be imposed just like taxes are and paid out semi-annually with the tax bill on those properties.
I would just add, Ms. Lyons, yeah, I'm excited about this. I know this is something that has been in the works or been in, in the thought process for many years, but now that we have Phoenix Metals moving into one of the parcels, and then this investment will then open up for additional construction, job creation at the location. So, all very good.
I agree.
Anyone
Sounds
else?
like a good
Great.
plan.
Did you guys want to say anything?
John Westheimer, if you have any questions or thoughts, I would like to say that Chris Shell and the city staff have been working on this for 2 years. This is not, they saved probably Phoenix from leaving the state and deserve a lot of credit for their hard work. Very fine.
Thank you.
I think we'd just like to say thanks for your investment and for your partnership. I know this isn't your first project back there. I believe you were also part of the distribution facility, so thanks for your continued investment here.
We want to be good people.
Great. Any other comments or questions? Okay, Ms. Gibb, could you please call the roll for our 2021-38?
Ms. Nenny?
Yes.
Mr. Moon?
Yes.
Mr. Mulligan?
Yes.
Mayor Condrey?
Yes.
Ms. Vettori?
Yes.
Okay, we'll move on to item number 9, which is ordinance number O-2021-78, an ordinance determining to proceed with the acquisition, construction, installation, equipping, and improvement of public improvements and declaring an emergency.
So move for adoption.
Second?
Any other comments on this? Okay, Ms. Skank, could you please call the roll?
Mr. Moon?
Yes.
Mr. Mulligan?
Yes.
Mayor Condrey?
Yes.
Ms. Nenny?
Yes.
Ms. Vettori?
Yes.
Then item 10, ordinance number O-2021-79, an ordinance levying special assessments for the purpose of acquiring, constructing, installing, equipping, and improving public improvements and declaring an emergency.
So move for adoption.
Second?
Any comments or questions? Okay, Ms. Skank, could you please call the roll?
Mr. Mulligan,
Yes.
Mayor Condrey,
Yes.
Ms. Vettori,
Yes.
Ms. Nenny,
Yes.
Mr. Moon.
Yes.
Okay, we'll move on to item 11, ordinance number O-2021-80, an ordinance authorizing a contract with DSD Advisors LLC to provide public policy and government relations assistance, which we would call lobbying, and declaring an emergency.
So move for adoption.
Second.
Ms. Cohen, would you like to speak to this one?
If I may, I'm actually going to also pass this to Ms. Lyons, who was working on this project.
We've been talking about the Riverfront project for some time now, and due to the potential magnitude of the project and the potential capital stacks, more importantly, some of the tax credits that are used, the TMUD is probably one of the ones that we're identifying the most. We've decided to engage with DSD Advisors to help us go to the state and see if we can get some amendments to the tax credits and possibly go after other types of credits for this project. We're also going to engage with them to potentially work on a capital ask for the state from the city of Middletown, as well as just get updates on legislative items related to anything through the city. It could be a public works item or a planning item or an economic development item. They will kind of keep us engaged with what's happening at the State House and what things that are happening as well too. Matt Davis, I've known him for some time. We've worked together back when he was with Ready Cincinnati and Cincinnati Partnership, is well-known in the area. He's actually the advisor for the Warren County Port Authority. So we feel because of that relationship with the Port Authority, there will be a good tie-in and there will be potentials to work on potentially the town mall project as well too. So he's here. He's here to answer any questions if anyone has them. And that's pretty much it.
I'm just curious, historically speaking, has the city engaged government relations assistance, if you will, in the past to help move our efforts forward on other projects, or is this something that that we're giving a try at for the first time?
We kind of talked about that, and nobody could really remember.
I don't believe, we may have consulted with people on one-off occasions, small, little engagements here and there. I think this is the first time it's been on a more ongoing basis, to my knowledge.
A lot of communities do it, but we specifically kind of came to our attention when the capital projects come on, that we really haven't taken advantage of some of those asks too. So you just have to be prepared and be out there and be relevant, and that's why you hire someone, because obviously we don't have the capabilities or the warehouse to be in Columbus all the time, so.
And I would just add, I did bounce this off a couple legislators that I know, and specifically on the TMUD tax question, and they thought it was a very good idea that we have somebody on that all the time to help get it across the finish line.
I like the idea. I think it's good. I'm a little concerned about the focus on the Riverfront project, only because I feel like we're putting more money in without actually having seen any concrete financing from the developer. And I've been calling a lot of cities and references for the developer and what he's done, and every single one of them is still in the don't have financing phase. And that concerns me, and I just want to be sure that we are doing our homework before we put more money down, because I don't have the warm fuzzy yet that the financing is in place. So I'd like to have a little bit more of that warm fuzzy from the developer before we keep putting more resources down that line. I think the project briefs very well. I think we're all excited about that concept, but the project has briefed well elsewhere, and I want to make sure that this is the where it's going to actually happen instead of sit in the pending financing state indefinitely. So I have concerns over that, and I just, if that's the main focus of the contract, then I want to hold off a little bit. But if we're planning to use it for more than that, I like the idea of trying to lobby for state funding.
We are, and that's really important because you can correct me if I'm wrong, Matt, but that'll start early next year. And so we really need to start gathering our team and getting all of, you can't just go in and say, I have a wish list of 20. You really have to do your due diligence and prioritize things and get, everything together and get on the same page and start putting it out there. And there's potential legislation with economic development changing the enterprise zones and things of that nature that we just really need to stay on top of. I know one of the other things that we talked about potentially getting some funding for a small business incubator in downtown. We're applying for Jobs Ohio grant, but there might be some other funding there. So there's definitely other projects that we plan to engage Matt with in addition to that. I can specifically say keeping us up to date with the legislative stuff and then the capital stuff in addition to the T-MUD. So it's not everything, but that was the impetus of engaging him. It was.
I just want to make sure on especially the Riverfront project that we don't get the cart before the horse and lose the cart at any given time, and we protect ourselves as best as possible so that we have success long term. So
there's also, and correct me if I'm wrong, Matt, there's a 30-day out with our project. So if we see something that's happening, we're not going to need them, we have the ability to get out of the contract in 30 days.
yeah, I did see that.
So that protects us, I feel.
Any other comments or questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Ms. Skank, will you please call the roll?
Mayor Condrey,
Yes.
Ms. Vettori,
Yes.
Ms. Nenny,
Yes.
Mr. Boone,
Yes.
Mr. Mulligan.
Yes.
Okay, item 12, this is resolution number R 2021-39. A resolution to make adjustments to appropriations for current expenses and other expenditures of the City of Middletown, Counties of Butler and Warren, State of Ohio for the period ending December 31st, 2021, and declaring an emergency. This would be funds from the general fund and the human resources line item. We are not asking for any action until the October 5, 2021 meeting.
Ms. Cohn, would you like to speak to this?
Yes, please. One of the unfortunate things we are experiencing in Middletown as well as the state of Ohio and the entire United States is some difficulty recruiting new candidates for positions. And we have had some extra expenses this year in human resources, particularly related to recruiting, that have caused some of their budget items to go out of whack in recruiting, but also we find we are giving more medical tests, more employment screenings, and there's been some increased costs there related to retaining and attracting new employees. So we are finding the need to ask for a bit of an additional appropriation of $25,000 towards the Human Resources Department to help fund some of those needs.
Can you clarify, so more expenses on medical and screening, that means we're getting applicants, but they're not the right ones? Is that?
I will also introduce while here, Rachel Combs is here as our HR manager. It's really a twofold issue. One is if we do more recruiting, we give more tests, more pre-screenings, then also I think there's been some employee medical concerns as we go that we need to address, that it's caused an increase in that funding. I don't, Rachel, if you have anything else to add.
Rachel, would you mind just coming up, just so people can hear it when it actually gets produced?
Just speaking to public safety too, we have a lot of candidates that are ultimately going to other cities at the end of it. So medical testing with psychologicals, things like that have really increased this year.
So how would we try to cut down on those? Do you see maybe more focused recruiting or focus on retention?
Yeah, certainly. I think that's something that we're really focusing on this year, trying to get there. It's just off of a pandemic year too. I think there's a lot of opportunity, so people are just going other places, and a lot of turnover, turbulent times for public sector, and I think the private sector too. So we're just seeing it here.
Okay, thank you. To that end, did I hear that the city now has a leave policy associated with the vaccine?
We have had some ongoing discussions about how to help employees get through some of the COVID times. I think that is going to be changing. So I don't know if now's the best time to discuss it, but I'd be happy to update you at a different point.
Do you have thoughts about where that plan is going?
Part of the problem is we have had an issue raised by one of the unions that we need to address So it gets more into a conference with the attorneys that I would like to have before we really provided you a whole update. Because I think it gets confusing to tell you one thing and then have it change later after we finish that conference.
Okay. Any comments or questions on this one?
Have we considered any out-of-the-box enticements? You know, I know some cities have offered different, I don't know if it's bonuses or moving or whatever it might be, and I know that that's such a competitive landscape right now. I just didn't know, because obviously we're at where we are with some salary caps, but if there's just any other out-of-the-box enticements that we can try to get people, because we've been struggling for a bit, especially on a couple of these bigger positions, right?
You mean with regards to recruiting?
Correct, sorry.
One of the matters we'd consider, I believe it was a month or two ago, was increasing potential for the city manager to award signing bonuses. I think we also are looking at an HR staff about are there other benefits that we could work into the budget that would help make the city more enticing to recruit candidates. I think from my experience with dealing with this, and certainly Rachel can chime in if she has anything additional, this is a problem everyone is having, and we're trying to find ways to get as creative as possible. But it's proving difficult to find people that are interested in moving into public sector work.
Thank you.
Okay. Move on to item 13, which is ordinance number O-2021-81, an ordinance establishing a procedure for and authorizing a contract with Polydyne Incorporated for the purchase of polymer for the use at the water reclamation facility for the year 2022, and this is the first reading of this ordinance.
Ms. Cohen, would you like to speak to this?
Yes, Your Honor, this is one of the purchases we make fairly regularly involving the need for polymer at the water reclamation facility, asking for a approval of not to exceed $152,500 for year 2022. We have done extensive research in Public Works about Polydyne being the appropriate company to provide the polymer that's most effective in our system. So that's why we're asking to move forward with this contract and waiving the bids in order to get the best product necessary for the system.
Any comments or questions?
Okay. Our final item tonight, number 14, is ordinance number O-2021-82, an ordinance establishing a procedure for and authorizing an amendment to the contract with Air Products for the purchase of carbon dioxide for use at the water treatment plant for the year 2022, and this is also a first reading.
Ms. Cohen.
Similar situation of looking for necessary products for the water treatment plant in this case, asking for an expenditure of $27,775 to be able to provide the appropriate chemicals necessary for the treatment. This is through the SWOP4G buying cooperative. Ask that you approve purchasing the necessary product.
And both of these are within the budget already appropriated for
Yes.
water reclamation. Any other comments or questions? Okay. That brings us to new business. Does anyone have any topics for new business this evening?
I just wanted to address Mr. Batty, who's no longer here, but I've received nearly a dozen emails of people who are not interested in the ordinance. I am also not interested in the ordinance. I'm also not running again, so I won't give them the pleasure of voting me out. But I will say that I don't believe this ordinance has a place. I don't think we've seen that desire from council, or else three of us would have spoken up. So I know he kind of keeps coming and asking, so I just wanted to put it out there that I would not be supportive of that ordinance. Everyone I've heard from, small business owners don't want to be told how to run their businesses. So I just wanted to give him that feedback.
I would be supportive of something, of an ordinance that dealt with the vaccine specifically. I was in a Ohio Mayor's Alliance meeting in Columbus last week, and the Ohio Director of Health even himself said, we know the risks associated with COVID, and he said he personally knows the risks associated with COVID, and he chooses to get the vaccine. The key word being chooses. And that is where I believe our citizens have a right to choose the vaccine, and that we are sure that we keep our freedoms in place so that it's not forced upon us.
I mean, at this point, there isn't anything forcing it upon us, so,
There are federal mandates for some.
for government job, right? But I think in terms of making a citywide ordinance, I don't feel like there's anything at the table that I feel like we would need to move forward on for all of the residents of Middletown.
And we can agree to disagree on it, that's okay.
But I just wanted, I feel like he keeps coming and we just haven't said anything, so, I mean, the way it works is typically 3 people would have to kind of back an ordinance for it to hit the floor. And there hasn't been, and I've posed the question before to people individually.
I've been working on language to get one that would be appropriate and not the wrong one. So I want to make sure before I would propose anything that it's, it stays in the lane that it should stay in, and that it would be relevant to Middletown. And so that's where what I had seen to date was not exactly what I would consider something that we should consider, but I'm getting a little closer to something that I would like to put forward to staff. So you'll probably see something.
Just ask you to keep us up to date on whatever you want us to consider, and we'll distribute it appropriately.
And just on that note, if you have something that you would like to present, it would need to be seconded by 2 other council before we would expend staff resources to look into that specific piece of legislation, just as a
Ms.
matter of
Cohen
protocol.
stated at the last meeting that I should send it to her, so now I'm confused about the process and would like your input on that.
I would like, and this is me, Susan, so please feel free to direct us other ways. I think it would be helpful for a discussion on whether we're going to consider anything, if we would have a chance as a staff to look at whatever's proposed and be able to respond intelligently to any questions. But certainly if council's indicating they would like to have a vote first before staff time's expended, that is certainly up to you.
I just feel that we talk so often about the, how thinly our staff is stretched, and as Councilor Vittori has stated, no one else was interested in the legislation that was proposed or interested in going down that road. So if someone else would like to propose a different piece of potential legislation, I would think that I would want to hear from I would want to look at that legislation myself and hear from my fellow councilors that they were interested in going down that path.
So how do you propose then you look at the legislation? Because I can't email it to council because that would violate sunshine laws. So
You could bring it to new business.
the only way I could do that is, okay, I could bring it to the meeting and then you're going to read it during the meeting, or I don't.
Or you could tell us what you're looking for, because I don't think the exact words matter as much as like, hey, I'm looking to do X, Y, and Z, and then we could be like, yeah, we're into that, or we're not.
So my intent would be to create a legislation item that said that in Middletown, Ohio, we would not allow anyone, employers or especially city staff, to require a vaccine of anyone, of any citizen of our city or anyone employed in our city. That would be in a nutshell. Now, there's a lot more details in that because it's tied into the law and the Constitution, but that would be where I would go with it.
I guess I still have problems with that because while you're talking about protecting the freedoms of people, you're also taking freedoms away from small businesses to make decisions for themselves and for their business and for the people who choose to be employed with them. So that's my problem with what you're proposing. And
So,
I'm not really interested in going down that road with the heretofore presented legislation. So, if you're looking for other opinions,
Mr.
that's
Moon,
where
Mr.
mine's at.
Mulligan, would you guys like to comment on it?
Just one thought, and it's not really an opinion, it's just something I'm thinking about from the insurance perspective. I would be very concerned about legal liability we would be assuming, prohibiting an employer from doing something. We talked about a contract that we were looking at DMI, for a security downtown, and we were concerned about legal liability of giving a grant to a third party. Now we would potentially be assuming legal liability for injuries that a third party may sustain. So that would be just sitting here hearing it for the first time, that would be my gut reaction. And then taking it a step further, I'd want to consult with our insurance provider. Does that create insurability issues for the city at large because we are assuming those liabilities?
Mr. Mulligan?
If we could just get an updated opinion maybe from Bricker and Eckler on that type of legislation. I'm sure you've had other cities maybe inquire about the,
You guys aren't alone, so yes, we can certainly.
is that, I mean,
Yeah, we can
Did you
certainly turn
respond to
something.
it already, though? Wasn't that part of the original response, or was it not specific to what the mayor's,
Specific to what was presented to you previously?
is that not in that?
It was different. I think,
Okay.
I think the one from Lebanon, I just received it, so I haven't had a chance to fully look over it, but it seems more tailored to the vaccine itself and not masks at large.
And theirs dealt with just their city staff, and
Right.
then the resolution that dealt with employers was an encouragement to.
So, and that's what I was going to follow up, but I wanted to kind of gauge everyone's feelings before I said that. If it was altered so that it was a request or an ordinance stating that the city staff could not be mandated to get vaccinated, but that our employers, we would encourage in that manner, is that something that council would be supportive of?
I mean, we're not mandating it to our staff right now as it is, correct? So it's just a recommendation right now, it's still just a recommendation.
I think we would also need to look at how that would affect our charter provisions, indicating that the city manager is given the chief administrative officers and how that affects the charter balance of power that was set up. I don't know what the answer is that off the top of my head, but it would be an
We
issue I
are
would be
dipping our
concerned about.
toes, though, as a city into the vaccination aspect, because I understand this issue dealing with leave, whether you're vaccinated or not. So the toe is being dipped in the water, and I'd like to protect that from going any further.
I just want to bring up my concern about the charter provisions.
We can certainly tailor the prior decision in light of kind of the new circumstances, perhaps. That's something you guys are interested in.
So if I were to get the ordinance from Lebanon, have a look at it, see if that's something that is in line with what I'm thinking, what would I do with that at this point? Is there a resounding no one's interested? Is there enough people interested in legal services reviewing that?
I guess legal, I mean, if there's a limited review or something that could be done, and just, again, the lawyer's input would be important.
But do we want to bother spending time and resources on it at all? I mean, at this point, if we're not really facing a decision to be made, but we're making one, do we want to proactively do that and spend the money on legal? Or do we want to see what happens with this union discussion, see if we feel differently? I don't feel compelled right now that we need an ordinance in place. So I guess that's the question. Knowing our legal team is obviously already busy. And
I think it's worth the resources, that's me. So we'd have to get enough of us to say that it is. And I understand that, so.
Yeah, I just keep thinking back to legislation, what was it, a month or two ago, when we expended even more city funding for legal fees, because we're already in a year where we've spent so much on legal fees. I'm comfortable with where we're at right now. I certainly would like to see an update from staff on what happens with the discussions with the unions on the sick leave and whatnot. I'd love to get an update on that, but I'm not interested in changing anything legislatively right now as it pertains to masks or vaccines.
So that leaves Mr. Mulligan and Mr. Moon. Are you interested in using city legal resources to review legislation?
I really
regarding
need
the
to know
vaccine?
more about what's happening with the toe dipping in the water, because that's the first I've heard that. I'm not prepared to make any decision right now until I know more about that.
So if there, okay. Then, Ms. Cohen, you need to be willing to speak about that in some fashion, because otherwise we're at a standstill, and I don't know what to do about that.
I don't think we're in a place where we can intelligently have that discussion this evening. That doesn't mean we can't.
Can't intelligently, or we can't, I guess,
I think
what
this-
did that mean?
I think this forum is most appropriate to hand out the most up-to-date, correct information, and I don't feel like I have that to provide to you right now. And so I'm not going to provide, I don't want to provide you information that may change tomorrow, and I would need a minute to be able to address that adequately.
And so right now, like, I can appreciate Ms. Vittori and Ms. Ninny's hard stance and sharing what they feel. I feel like there's two of us sitting up here who aren't willing to say enough and just keep punting on this issue. And we either look into it or we don't. If you're interested in, saving the freedoms and liberties of our citizens to get the vaccine, as staff members, you are. If you're not, you're not, and that's okay.
I don't know if that's the decision.
Yeah, I don't-
That's a little broad. I think we're talking about.
But that's what we're talking about, is whether we're
That's what you're talking about. I think we're talking about whether or not we want to spend time and resources on seeing if it's even possible, feasible, legal, within the charter rules to do something that we're not even clear, I don't think, if anyone wants to move forward. Like, do we want this kind of ordinance in place right now? Or do we want to wait and see if it's necessary at another time?
My impression is that the majority of council has said, no, we don't want to do anything right now at this moment, and that's where it stands. That's my.
Is that true? Is that where?
If Mr. Palaniuk were here, I would tell him it is my preference that he not make this mandatory for our staff. Whether we need to pass legislation on that is a whole different conversation.
Okay, thank you. Joe, what are you thinking?
I think I've expressed myself adequately, but I will just say that it always is good to get an opinion from legal counsel. My position on the vaccines and masks haven't really changed. There are no plans for any mandates from this desk. And, we want everyone to stay safe and use their own good judgment, and hopefully we'll get through this and pass this pandemic.
Great. I'm still supportive of no vaccines, but I think the rest of council is going to sit and wait it out, so that's where we stand. Great. Any other topics for new business? Okay, thank you. Well, with that, we will adjourn until, let me pull up the next meeting.
October the 5th.
October the 5th at 17:30 or 5:30 p.m. here in council chambers. And until then, blue skies over Middletown.